Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad Thompson, it's fall. Football's in the air.
Yeah, it is.
Good time. Sort of back in the saddle. What a summer we had. I was in the gym this morning, Conrad, and a guy referenced July. I'll just say the whole deal. And he, a friend of a friend, and I'm going in a rabbit hole, but I just kind of looked over at him. So this guy knows Karen very well. And his best friend said, hey, what's Karen Jarrett like really in person? And it got me, which I chuckled, because I said, if you walked up to that exact same guy and said, hey, is wrestling a performance? Is it scripted? Whatever, real versus fake, and all, whatever descriptor you want to put in there, of course they're going to say, oh, it's all acted. But yeah, anyway, it got me and the guy in the discussion this morning about me and you, our June, July, and August. What a little roller coaster it was, wouldn't you say?
We had a little fun, do we not?
It was. And now football's in the air and the Titans got to win. Roll
Hey,
Tide.
you know what? Let me go ahead and be the first one. Give those Tennessee Volunteers their props.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, I thought it was a great show, great game, really enjoyed it. I learned recently that one of my lifelong friends, or I shouldn't say lifelong, for the last 25 years, it was like childhood best friends with the Florida head coach. I didn't know that. So I started pulling for him, A, because I like my friend, and B, because I hate you.
Okay.
And so I was pulling for Florida. And damn, y'all looked good, man. That was a fun game. It was an exciting game. And you had Caleb Presley on the sidelines and Theo Vaughn on the sidelines and dumping Gatorade. And man, I'm really excited that Tennessee is good enough to have a good showing before Alabama just curb stomps them. It'll be fantastic.
I told your story a couple of times this week that, hey, Jeff, your son Cody.
Yeah.
He's got a big birthday coming up.
He does.
Which reminds me that in his entire life, not when he's 12, not when he's 11, not when he's 10, we go all the way down to that embryonic stage. Yep. And maybe a year or two before that, he's never seen the Vols beat Alabama.
Never will.
Right, Conrad?
Never will. Never will.
Oh, no. You sound as silly as Joe Park. Or Chris Park, or whatever you want to call that buffoon.
He's an imposter. We know that. You're running his mouth. I mean, here's the thing. If we're going to compare people, we should be talking about the man that is Tua, who got his damn bell rung, rubbed some dirt on it, came back the next series. Maybe not the best decision, but by God, the Dolphins are good. And holy cow, who saw it? The Jags are too.
Ooh.
My buddy Cassio Kidd lost in our elimination pool. He thought the Chargers were going to beat the Jags. It's a new Jags. Yes, it is. How about that?
Coaching. leadership, coaching. I was texting with a buddy yesterday about all kinds of things as far as NFL. It is kind of amazing when you look, well, NFL, the parody's unbelievable. The Bills took us to the woodshed, and the Titans turned around and we beat the winless Raiders, but the Raiders are all right. But yeah, Doug Peterson and the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, I think this goes without saying, another year under his belt is big.
Yeah.
It is big. So yeah, man, Jerry Jones gets a lot of heat, doesn't he?
Oh gosh.
I'd love to talk about him on every sports talk show that now the whole byline is he doesn't want to win. He just wants to be in the news.
I don't know that I believe that.
I don't believe. I mean, that's kind of like losers are in the news for the wrong reason. Of course he wants to win. Now, does he like to make headlines? Yes, he does.
Well, we like to make some headlines too. And boy, I know when I ask this, we're probably going to make some, and I don't mean to. But as you and I are recording this, there's been multiple reports out, maybe their opinions, of Brian Alvarez, Wade Keller, I'm sure others. They don't believe CM Punk will be back in AEW. And you have been a part of some pretty controversial moments in professional wrestling.
Oh, you think?
Who could forget the time you put a pistol in Vince McMahon's belly? Anyway, what say you? Do you believe we've seen the last of CM Punk in AEW? Because I don't. And I know that there was, I don't know exactly what happened, and I don't know that we ever will, and I don't know that it really matters all that much. It just feels like at the end of the day, man, with all that we've seen that happened, where we just said, oh, so-and-so will never work for WWE again. And again, I realize it's a different company. But who would have thought you would have been back, or the Ultimate Warrior, or so many other guys? But yet in the end, people always do what's best for business. And you don't get to be as successful as business people as the Khan family are without being business people. I don't know if I'm willing to buy into the fact that we never see Punk again in AEW. What say you?
So, Conrad, here's kind of how I view that. And I have to base it on my 36 plus years in the business is that before the internet, it was obviously rumor and phone calls and that kind of stuff. But now everyone perceives that they know everything.
Yes.
Lift up under the hood. Only the mechanic is the one who says, well, the engine blew. But the reason the engine blew is that because that belt had worn down, and that belt had been wearing down for about 3 months, which put a lot of stress on this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's just so many different layers. I mean, in my situation, many people have come up to me and said, hey, Jeff, I had no idea that Vince McMahon is the one who actually delivered you the check before you went out and worked.
Right.
And did it with a smile. And I said, there was never any tension under the situation. Matter of fact, Vince, the Friday before the Sunday with China, and we're coming up on one of those anniversaries, but he's the one who said, hey, I've been on the road. I think things have gotten out of hand. Can we turn this ship around? So there was, I mean, so I say all that to say, I don't think anyone really knows except Tony and Phil and what their relationship was the prior 30, 60, 90, 120 days, whatever the time frame is going into the situation, because everybody can have a bad day and some days are worse than others.
There you go.
What really, really happened that night and backstage and this, well, I'll say the scrum in the press conference, but then the legit scrum and the fight, was it a fight and what really happened and all the ins and outs. But I say all that to say, back up even further, the analytics of what CM Punk, and I know our buddy Eric Bischoff has got some strong feelings on this, but what were the metrics? What needle move or didn't move, and CM Punk gets credit or doesn't get credit, or where does he fall in that? But I do not think we've seen the last of him. Now, I have no idea what the situation is. And here's what I have a lot of experience at, and not just in my own personal, but I've observed when folks lawyer up or legal up, most of the time, one group wins, and it's not either side. The attorneys win.
Well, we don't know. We don't know necessarily that any of
No, we don't. But I mean, it's gone very quiet, and
well, part of the reason it's gone quiet is because I don't know, but we've read that he's had surgery. So, even if none of the shenanigans happened, he'd still be out.
He'd be on the shelf. Yes.
Yeah.
And okay, so that is the conversation I heard recently. That okay, like you said, if the all the stuff didn't happen and he got put on the shelf again, does that freeze his contract? And we say, hey, we're going to address all this, but you cannot perform in the ring. So do we have a press pause on your contract that regardless of the legalities of the situation, we're pressing pause because you cannot perform in the ring? Is that a situation? Do you know, Conrad? I haven't heard anything on that.
I don't know. I just wanted your vibe on. I want to circle back to the Eric thing, but first,
never say never.
Yeah, that's where I was going. It's like
never say never.
Once upon a time, we would have never guessed Eric Bischoff would be on Monday Night Raw. Like,
oh gosh, yeah.
It's just hard to imagine. And I understand that allegedly it got ugly and blah blah blah. But how many times have we seen something like that in wrestling where things get, well, they could never fix this? Well, yeah, they do. I mean, in the end, you got to decide if you're going to make money together. I mean, to me, that's kind of where it winds up.
Conrad, I've referenced the story about Austin Idol, and Austin and me text from time to time. But my father, this is how close to home it hits. Jerry Law is my dad. Jerry, will you promise me something? This is on a Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Will you promise me something? I've just been sitting here thinking. We had a hell of a house Monday night in Memphis, and Idol wasn't on it. And the week before that, we had a really good house. And I know as we get rolling through this, you're going to want a partner in this angle or whatever it may be. I want you to promise me right now that you won't ask for Idol to come in and be your partner. And if I bring it up, I want you to do the exact same thing. Tell me, no, we're not bringing Austin Idol in. It won't work out. Okay, handshake agreement. They're business partners. Give them about 6 weeks and the perfect opportunity comes up and they need the right Memphis promo, a guy that's going to come in and blah, 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 blah. Hey, Austin, can you be? Yep. I mean, it just happens. It just happens. And for those people out there that think CM Punk will never go to the WWE,
that's bullshit too.
BS. Yeah.
Listen, it's one of those deals where, and I understand it has to be on his terms and he'd have to be agreeable and all that, but man, has it not been apparent that everything's a little different up there right now? I mean, based on everything that we're hearing and seeing, it's a new place. And I think
is good in our industry.
I think it's good for wrestling. I'm excited to see what's next, but I, for one, as a big CM Punk fan, hope this is not it. I really don't believe it is. And I don't think it will be. And I am curious because you sort of said something and then moved on. So I want to follow up. Well, the metrics and depending on how you measure, and I know Eric's got strong feelings. I think Eric is just crazy. I think Punk has been a needle mover. You look at the pay-per-views, the buildings they've sold out, the merch records. Now, I nor you know the specifics of his contract. We've both heard things, but we've heard a lot of things. So who knows what to believe? But do you not see the value in CM Punk? I mean, because I'm curious because it sounded as if you were like, well, I don't know.
Now, A, I don't know what he's making.
Right.
So ROI, that's one thing. B, you can go. I think nowadays, I've had a couple of conversations. Nowadays you used to I think the pay-per-view was good, but look, TNA days, it takes a minimum of 90 days. Those days are gone. Fight will tell you next day or real time. That. So
click the button. Yeah.
Yes. So transactional is a barometer that's as real as it can get, because if a guy's merch is going, that means he's selling hard tickets.
Mhm.
There's not a real middle ground there.
Look how fast they sold Chicago out with him.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different barometers in there. The other one was, and got to give our man, Conrad, do you know you're in a video game, and I'm going somewhere with this, you're in a video game that has won not one, not two, not three, not four, I won't go all the way up, 12 video game awards, either best play or it's all, I mean, 12 awards. But I say all that to say the AEW game that's coming out, who's front and center on that cover? Okay, he's front and center on that cover. So the gaming industry is very analytical and much more than I ever dreamed it was. So, okay, is CM Punk a needle mover in the gaming industry? Obviously he is, or he wouldn't be promptly placed. You go to AEWgames.com, and I mean, so I don't know what your exact question was, but
you said needle mover. That was the phrase you used.
Yeah. So merchandise is a direct barometer that can be attributed to hard ticket sales. What's the chairman? What's VCAM? I have always said live events are your best barometer on the temperature of your product.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it all goes into what is he getting paid in a yearly, not weekly.
Well, hang on now. You're talking about ROI, but a minute ago you were talking about needle mover.
Yeah, no, okay.
I don't think it can be argued without us knowing the specifics of his contract. Dude's been a needle mover.
Sure. Yeah, I was definitely. You don't think he was, or you don't think Eric?
No,
does Eric think he's not a needle mover?
I think Eric has a hard on for him, and I don't really understand why. Maybe it's because Eric feels like he's been picked on a lot for, some of the WCW stuff. I'm not sure. I think everybody knows that I mean that, and respect Eric Bischoff. But at the same time, like the idea that CM Punk is not a needle mover, I don't think anybody could argue that. Now, Eric goes on the program sometimes and says, oh, he's a financial flop and all this, but he says that based on the rumor and innuendo that we've heard, but it's not a publicly traded company. We don't know what he's getting paid. We don't know what he's brought in. We don't know any of those specifics. Sure. What I know is when he came back to wrestling a little over a year ago, buddy, it was a fucking monumental piece of television. I mean, one of the most exciting, electric, special pieces of business in the modern era. And you could show it to a non-fan and they have no context of what it is, but no, man, this is something. This is special. And supposedly he's had all kinds of 24-hour records with ProWrestlingTees.com. And man, they were selling out Chicago, big arenas, not the little 10,000 seaters, but the United Center, just like that. I mean,
Conrad, you caught me off guard because we never really talk
about current stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But if we're going down that hole, the promo he made before going into Top Guy Weekend, that promo that he made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to reference part when he went up in the crowd.
Yeah. He did that after.
Yeah. I was saying the same in ring, but
yeah.
The in ring part was good. The outer ring, when he went up into the crowd and finished
unbelievable.
As we often go down rabbit holes in this podcast, talking about how to connect emotionally with folks.
He gets it, dude.
He did it that night for sure. Yeah. In a protagonist, babyface, good guy, whatever brush you want to paint. People said, I want to see him win.
I'm just saying, you look at what happened, and certainly it's negative, but boy, we got over it with Shawn Michaels, and we're better for it as wrestling fans. And I think CM Punk, I hope, I haven't seen the end of him. I hope he comes back better than ever after this injury. And I hope he continues to carve his own path, hopefully in AEW. But no matter what he does, I'm going to be watching. I'm a fan. And I'm also a fan of AAA, which is what we're going to be talking about today. It's part 2 of our AAA episode. We sort of laid the groundwork in part 1. We hope you'll go check that out. But before we talk about way back when, because we're going to talk about 2010 and moving forward here, I want to talk about what's coming up, man. As you and I are recording this, we're about 3 weeks away from Triple Mania 30, which is like the WrestleMania 30 for AAA, or as we're going to call it for the rest of the show, AAA. So we don't confuse anybody and think we're talking about roadside assistance services. I saw the press conference this past weekend. I've gotten to know Dorian and obviously think a lot of him. But man, how cool was it to see Camille from the NWA? And she's sort of been playing in her own sandbox. You and I know her, Tennessee gal. And
they live up here. Him and Aaron Thomas live. They work out same gym. It's
amazing to see her down there getting the spotlight. Of course, she's going to be taking on, I think, one of the more underrated and Mrs. Valkyrie, and you know, the Reina de Reinas, or however you say that, the Queen of Queens title. It feels bigger than I imagined it might. You know, the rumor and innuendo was originally going to be Thunder Rosa, and of course we know she's down injured and out of commission. But just like in the NFL, an injury creates opportunity. This is probably going to be the biggest platform Camille's ever wrestled in front of. I'm excited to see her do it.
For sure. You know, reviewing the research and looking into this, in today's episode, we could have breakout episodes, and I think we will in the future, because I want to get granular. And I've really thought to myself for today's show is, if I get too granular, Conrad, just stop me, because there's a hair match. Dorian's father got his head shaved. There's 2 championship runs. There's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. But what you are kind of a newbie, if you will, and I think you may admit that,
of course,
that Triple Mania is, for an American wrestling fan today, there's no other way to say it. It is the Mexican WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And this is, do the old Conrad, not 1, not 2, not 3. No, it's Triple Mania 30.
It's a big deal.
It's a really big deal and a huge event, and a lot of history goes into it. A lot of folks want on that card, and I'll let you get into the different matches you want to talk about. But Camille in this spotlight with Taya, and Taya, Karen's favorite, as a footnote, but you know, a girl who has a lady who's busted her ass, went down there. I mean, you know, became as a part of the culture, learned the language, paid her dues, up and down the highways of Mexico, and not just learned the language and the culture, but learned how to get over in Lucha Libre wrestling. And Camille has her work cut out, because in that arena, you better bring your A game. And so Camille, it's a lot more than just getting ready for cardio in so many ways. So she has her work cut out. I'll say that, but it is going to be one of several matches that there's a bit of electricity that goes into every Triple Mania, just like a WrestleMania.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going down October 15th from Mexico City. I'm going to be there. I'm pretty excited. I've been lucky enough to see several WrestleManias in person, a Wrestle Kingdom in person, and now a Triple Mania in person. Cibernetico versus Pagano. Going to be hair versus hair. Pagano is like a modern hardcore wrestler, you know. So when you think of you know, the hardcore wrestlers that we've enjoyed here in the past, Pagano's kind of like that new guy. Cibernetico, man, that's the guy I saw in the '97 Royal Rumble. So he's been around a while. Hijo del Vikingo, who everybody thinks is the next big thing, is going to be taking on Rey Fenix. And I think most everyone listening to this knows that Rey Fenix is one of the best wrestlers in the world. And a lot of people say Vikingo is the next Rey Fenix. Of course, Rey Fenix has something to say about that. He's still here. So we're going to see what's going on for the AAA Mega Championship. Psycho Clown's on the show. Blue Demon Jr.'s on the show. Micro Man, who I got to see in person, who was, if you've never seen Micro Man, my friends who saw Micro Man in person could not believe what they saw. It's fantastic. You're going to love him. Just look him up. I guess you've been hanging around Johnny Nitro a little too much now. He's calling himself Johnny Caballero. Brian Cage is there. Sam Adonis is there. Laredo Kid, Bandito, friend of the show, Willie Mack is there. But somebody that I think everybody should be paying attention to, maybe you've missed it, but Commander's on this show, and Commander's a guy I was first introduced through GCW. He does something I've never seen anybody do before. It blew me away. We made sure he was on the Ric Flair's last match card, and he's going to be a part of this show. And I think he's going to be one of those next breakout big time stars that becomes a global phenomenon. Have you seen much Commander? Have you seen his spot where he runs across the top rope? And
I have not,
the stuff he does with the top rope, dude, it's unbelievable. I hope everybody gives it a shot. It's going to be available on Fight. I'm going to order it so I can watch it back. This is a real story. My mom and dad were in person, of course, for Ric Flair's last match in Nashville. But when they got home, they ordered it on Fight. Like I couldn't have gave them a damn promo code, but thanks for the cheese, mom and dad. And they wanted to watch the triple match because they couldn't believe what they saw. They wanted to see it again. So they got to rewind it and fast forward and watch it over and over. And anyway, I've already pre-ordered it on Fight, and I'm going to be there October 15th. I'm pumped. So I'm excited to talk to you and continue to learn more about AAA. Hope you guys will check it out on Fight as well. You're in the middle of some stuff here in 2010. It's you and Karen up against Kurt and whoever they're bringing in at the time, which in this case was China. How crazy is it? You and Karen against Kurt and China. The Observer had this to say. Conan then said he doesn't trust Jeff Jarrett. He says he doesn't agree with Dorian and that these guys should be working with the TNA group to take over AAA, saying he hates TNA, that he's known Jarrett for 15 years. Jarrett thinks he's the king of the mountain, but this isn't Nashville. Conan said Jarrett doesn't like Latinos, and when he was in TNA, it sucked working for a racist boss. This is so funny because Conan is forbidden to say anything negative in public about TNA because of their out-of-court settlement on his lawsuit. So instead, he writes an angle where he feuds with TNA so he can say whatever he wants, but it's all storyline. Dorian said that Conan and Jarrett would solve their problems on the May 18th show. So I like the blurring of the lines when we can add a little bit of realism. We can suspend our disbelief. We can say, okay, I know that's just joshing and that's just fun and games, but now this was real. And the idea that we've got an angle here where it's you and Kurt and Karen, and now Conan saying all this crazy stuff about you being a terrible person and blah, blah, blah. This is good stuff.
All right, give it a little set point because I think it may be a bit confusing. Maybe it's not, but the Karen, Jeff, Kurt, China match is TNA. That's on Impact.
Yes.
And that storyline, we had been going several months. So that was, the Jeff Kurt angle was coming to a close. And so that's my in-ring hat I'm wearing, Conrad. Outside the ring in TNA is after the whole power play and back in the office and working day to day. Me and Bob Carter came to agreement that I was going to focus on international. And that's what I did. Later following year, we did Rinka King and there were some UK tours and got to work with Lionheart and all that. Those are another episodes. But as far as Mexico went, during 07, 08, 09 or 08, 09, 010, somewhere in that little area, Conrad, Dixie had wanted us to try to work with Paco and the other company. And that was kind of an up and down talent exchange. But at the same time, I'll call it the litigation between Conan and Panda Energy International and TNA Entertainment, all that was going on. Finally, the dust settled. Let's just say all that. And bygones would be bygones. And Moody Jack Melendez, originally from Puerto Rico, he had done our Spanish broadcast. He had worked for the company for years here in Nashville. He had gone down to Mexico, and now he's working for AAA with Conan. Have I lost you so far?
No.
Okay. So he's working down there, and now we're going to do this storyline, and it was no secret at all in Mexico or in the U.S. that Conan and TNA had a major falling out.
Yep.
And that things were settled and everything was over and done with. Then all of a sudden, Conan's doing this story And to kind of put the flag in the ground, in Mexico at the time, my world listeners, it was AAA or Tripla, as I got to start referring to now, but AAA wrestling in Mexico. That was the name of the promotion, still is, but we'll call it the Society, La Sociedad, stands for Society. That was the heel faction group that Dorian, the son, had been corrupted by Conan and others. And so it was a interpromotional war that Dorian, the young upstart, was breaking away from his family and his mother, because the mother was the original founder, Antonio Peña's brother, sister, and all that kind of stuff. So all of that tension had been building. And then the next thing you know, we'll call it the king of the mountain, the tortilla throwing Rudo was coming down, and there was going to be a big face-to-face in San Luis Potosi, home of several famous wrestling stars. But that's kind of where the blurring of the lines build up. So Conan had been sowing those seeds, creatively sowing those seeds. And we'll get into it later in this episode, how much forethought Conan always puts in his stories. He really thinks things through. But he had started sowing those seeds, and the show sold out. And I'm going to take a little credit here. The show sold out based off Jeff Jarrett and Conan coming face to face for an in-ring. People were saying, hey man, this stuff is real. And now they're going to, we know they're going to work together. Okay. But let's see what comes out of this, because they're going to fight each other and we want to see that fight. That's how the table had been set.
Well done. I love it. And it's exciting. It was blurring in the lines. It's great stuff.
So I don't want to jump ahead, but I'll say this, Conrad. I fly down there. Abyss. I'm trying to think somebody, but we get picked up at the airport, and I have not seen or spoke to Conan, because Moody and them kind of did the arrangements, in years. This is real, cut the room tension with a knife. I had not, it was, I'm not going to say the tension was real. So we arrive at the building, Conrad. You've got to get him to tell his side of this story too, or whatever it is. But he's producing the show and he's doing his thing and this and that and all this kind of stuff. And we get there and put the bags in the room, and me and Abyss, we just go back, go out in the arena. This is earlier in the day, and sit up in the bleachers or sit up in the stands a while and just kind of watch how things go. And they kind of, okay, here's kind of one segment, two segment. We're expecting to kind of have some niceties, hey, this is the deal. And all of a sudden you hear on the horn, all right, clear the arena. We're letting folks in. I look over to Biss like, oh, okay. Okay. I guess we're not doing the whole proverbial walkthrough today. We're not going to have any discussions. We're not going to, okay, let's go to the back. So there were messages conveyed, and again, I don't want to jump too far ahead, Conrad, but it was an interesting day at work, to say the least. So I'll let you take it.
Let me tag in here. So the taping happens May 18th. There's a sellout 5,000 folks there. Meltzer would say this. It built up a big showdown between Conan and Jeff Jarrett, but it was a swerve, as all of La Sociedad, instead of attacking Jarrett and working to run off Tripla, all turned on Zorro. Jarrett got great heat with fans throwing garbage at him, and he and Conan argued, and the crowd went crazy, thinking Conan was going to turn face against Jarrett. But then they did the swerve where Conan and Jarrett and La Sociedad all attacked Zorro with a baseball bat and beat him down. This leads to the Zorro versus Jarrett title match. Yep, they kicked the world champion out of their group. Dr. Wagner Jr. and Joe Leiter and Nicho beat Abyss, Jarrett, and Super Crazy in the main event, when Wagner Jr. pinned Crazy. They had the usual post-main event run-in brawl. The AAA guys cleared the ring of La Sociedad, as well as Jarrett and Abyss. Mr. Roldan then said that this showed that even if La Sociedad joins with TNA, he won't be able to take over AAA. Dorian then said he's wrong, and that after Triple Mania, they'll destroy AAA and TNA will take over. So this is a legit invasion angle. You're working with Dorian to put all this together, I assume, or are you working with his father?
Oh no, Dorian. Dorian and Moody was the early kind of creative conduit, and then obviously Konnan. At the end of the day, and it's a Konnan creative with Dorian, obviously integral part of it, and I'm sure Moody was in there. But that was the story, that was the tension, and you got to remember that TNA in the early relationship, 03, 04, 05, we were that upstart pay-per-view only company. Now, fast forward to 2010, been on Spike several years, all the different names, Kurt and Christian and 3D. And by this time, Hulk, it was the TNA brand was much more well-known. And here comes TNA going to side with the son of the owner, the mother. Yeah. And then Konnan. The
Shane McMahon, if you will.
There you go. And this is where Konnan is he is Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon combined in this culture. And he's the one who's he's going to defend it against that gringo Jarrett. And we go at it in the ring verbally, not me, but we through the translator. But Konnan is giving me a dog cussing, and they really think we're about to come to blows. And just as Meltzer wrote, the result was we kicked the world champion out of our group because we were taking over. The subtleties of the entire story were freaking awesome and a ton of heat, and it just kind of set things up for the next year.
Bravo, Konnan. Konnan doesn't get enough credit. What a creative genius, hell of a performer, just did it all. We'll keep telling that story, I'm sure. But so tell me about the real life tension. You don't talk to Konnan at all until you're out there?
Backstage, because again, Moody's is creative, and they, I need obviously me and Abyss, and it was translation. Like, what are we doing here? And so we didn't really get into and look, whether we weren't talking for a purpose or not, Konnan was also running a show.
Yeah.
There were no high fiving. Hey, bro, good to see you. None of that. We went to the ring with the creative laid out, lots of tension, and look, you're going to be going to Mexico City for Triple Mania, Conrad.
Can't wait.
I want to take you to San Luis Potosi. I want to take you to a few other shows where you get a real taste of the culture. But would you say it was May? It was hot in that building, but the tension and the people, they just knew me and Konnan were going to go to swing it. Now, once the angle came off and we got to the back, when business it's like, that just clicked huge. And look, Dorian, so this is 10 years ago. So he's 27 here, Conrad?
Young man, yeah.
A young man. Oh, a ton of heat. He's siding with the American. It was just beautiful. It was really good.
At the time, you lost a loser leaves town match to Kurt Angle, and you're banished to Mexico by TNA. We haven't really gotten into this in full detail, but is it really just, hey, Bob wanted me to focus on international? Is that it? Or is there more to
it? Give us a rest in, look, it's a whole nother story, but be careful with your success. It could be frowned upon. That's a whole nother episode. Give
me the Cliff Notes version. People thought there was too much Jeff on the show.
Oh, no. Dixie didn't want us on the show. Dixie didn't want Jeff and Karen on the show, period. It got over. The story got over. Kurt was awesome. China for that match was awesome. Karen was awesome. It got rolling. And whether it was a Dixie Russo, Hulk, whatever it may be, Dixie didn't want us on the show. And hey, we're going to give your character a rest. Okie dokie.
I can tell the frustration is still.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. You're making me relive this stuff. No, but it was so silly.
Well,
so silly.
Only in wrestling is a thing where, hey, Now go do your job. Don't do it too well. Right? Isn't that silly?
Oh, it's childish.
Don't do it too well now. So you head to Triple Mania and you get the win for the AAA World Super Mega Heavyweight title from Zorro. It's reported in the Observer that the original plan was to have Kurt Angle here at Triple Mania, but his price was too high. I find that curious. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the look, when Kurt did not work a TNA date, we had to allocate a certain amount to it, and he was getting paid so much, it was never going to align with Mexican bookings. That's why the New Japan deal was so lucrative for all parties that got that New Japan did anything. TNA screwed it up. But yeah, Kurt's economics did not work in Mexico. I think he went twice, maybe once or twice. He was never considered to be a regular ever.
So let's talk a little bit about the match itself. Meltzer would say this. Jarrett pinned Zorro to win the AAA Super Mega Heavyweight title in 15 and a half minutes. El Hijo del Tirantes was the heel, and he pretty much let everything go. There was outside interference by both Karen, Jarrett, and Anderson. Zorro used a kendo stick. The match was described as slow and boring, but Zorro wasn't close to 100% due to injuries, most notably several pulled or torn muscles. Jarrett at one point cracked his guitar over Zorro's head, and Zorro threw powder in Jarrett's eyes. The finish would see Jarrett use the third of 3 guitar shots and then hit Zorro with a kendo stick for the pin. The crowd was furious with Jarrett winning. Jarrett was taunting the crowd by throwing tortillas into the audience. Is this the footage that I've seen a friend of ours send me? You trying to escape to the back and they're throwing stuff at you?
Not this one.
You were ducking for cover.
Yeah, not that's another event. But you know, this is something that we knew Zorro was not in tip-top shape. I had no idea it was this bad, but look, again, the cultural situation down there, they work, or, the Lucha guys work 6, 7, some guys work, I don't know if 10 is too much, but I mean, they work all the time. It's not just a AAA show. So Zorro was beat up and banged up. And so we had, more than usual, as it referenced, 3 guitars, Karen at ringside. The referee let everything go. I do know this was, I don't want to call it the show, but Karen connected emotionally with the Lucha audience. This was one of those nights that as her character began to develop, it was electric. It was really, really, we made a good package. And this was, we win the title and she was impactful, and but poor Zorro was beat up bad before the match.
A few weeks later, you defend the title in a 3-way against Dr. Wagner Jr. in LA Park and retain the title after Chessman hit Park with a guitar. What was the plan for you to be the long-term champion, or was it just not realistic?
No, I think everybody was just going to kind of see on a step-by-step basis the success of it. And as we rolled into it, it was working really good. And the storyline, again, I don't think we're, to get in this entire run, we can't get too granular,
right.
if you will. But the year and a half that I was the champion, the hair matches with Dorian and his father and the intricate storylines and all this, it was rolling. It was working. I mean, business was good. The heat was great. The storyline was there. And I'm sure it's debatable, but the championship, I mean, look at Roman right now. He's in the Usos. When you hold on to a title, the longer you can hold on to it without it getting stale and fresh opponents, we were rolling, and it was fresh and new, and everything that went with it. And I came back and from time to time was on TNA TV as the Mexican champion. We had to cover the plate, and that was a bunch of drama, political BS that wasn't real, but we went down that road. But long story short, it was working. There wasn't any set plan. You win it at this Trumplemania and drop it at the next. There was no set plan. It was, we'll just keep going.
Talk to us about LA Park. A lot of us listening to this are familiar with him just from the Nitro days when we knew him as La Parka, the chairman of WCW, but you got to work with him here, and I'm sure you at least shared a locker room with him in WCW, but this is a different experience. Now you're on sort of his home territory. Talk to us about LA Park.
So he may be a really, really good example of Lucha Libre culture in that you just named it. La Parka is an IP, is an intellectual property owned by AAA Wrestling, and they made Adolfo the original La Parka. Well, they had a business falling out, and they put a new guy under that, and he was a longtime star. God rest his soul. He just passed away a couple of years ago. Terrible accident, did a tope out and paralyzed him, and he truly never recovered. But La Parka got over in WCW. Obviously, he was already, or he had never been brought up to Nitro. But he came back, and they did that storyline. LA Park versus La Parka, not mass versus mass, but they did all kind of bloodbaths and great storytelling and all that. But now by, what is this, 2010, 11, La Parka was in and out of the promotion and knows how to work. And obviously, he, like a lot of guys, he was over. And so he was in and out of the promotion, and I enjoyed working with him, but he'll lay his stuff in. I'll tell you that for sure.
El Zorro, we mentioned him a couple times here. What can you tell us about El Zorro?
Just a charismatic, not a mask, very charismatic. Again, we referenced Cybernetico not long ago, and he's a true legend. And on this Triple Mania, when you talk about it, it's like Terry Funk versus Mick Foley, or Terry Funk versus who's a modern day deathmatch guy, not Matt Cardona. But, yeah. So it's that. But Zorro was a guy who had worked his way up to the ranks through the years, and so he was a seasoned vet that was the champion, and again, very charismatic.
I feel like we should mention you're going to drop the title to El Messias. Am I saying that right? At Rey de Reyes,
Ricky Banderas, El Messias.
When LA Park interferes and ends your title reign. Up to that point, you were the longest reigning champion. So that's kind of a big deal.
Only Johnny Caballero, I think he broke my record last year or 2 years, whatever, pandemic, whenever it was. But yes, that's a pretty cool stat for me, Conrad.
Ricky Banderas has been around a long time. We've seen him for a while. I remember seeing him back in the day, I think in TNA, did we not? He was around 07, 08, something like that.
Mega star in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Mega. Huge star.
Probably one of the biggest of that era, right?
For sure.
Maybe
that him and Apollo were the new they were the new blood, Savio Vega and Miguel and Castillo, they were the generation a little bit up, but Macias, super athletic, and he was on Lucha Underground, was he not? Yep. But great talent, and he was, he was going to be there full time, and I thought it was pretty cool that I got to drop it to him because I'd known Ricky a while.
Could you compare him to someone in American wrestling?
Oh boy, I won't do good at this, but gosh almighty. Oh man, he's athletic, built great,
but super decorated. Here's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
IWA World Heavyweight Champ 6 times, IWA Intercontinental Champ 3 times, IWA Tag Team Champ 6 times.
And IWA is Victor Quinones's Puerto Rican
promotion. Their hardcore title 10 times. Here in AAA, they're World Tag Team Champ 1 time. The Rey de Reyes, the Mega Champion 4 times. The Lucha Underground Champion. I mean, whatever you're looking for.
Yep.
He's done it, including the World Wrestling Council, WWC, and even the old defunct Wrestling Society X. Like, this guy's been everywhere, done everything. A lot of people saw big money in him. He just, for whatever reason, didn't get much time on the WWF, WCW side of things, but it doesn't mean he didn't have an incredible career and become a global star.
Too young for the WCW days. He came along after that, but at TNA, there was some opportunity. Nothing to his fault. Political situations. I'd have to really do some research and jog my memory on his opportunities and timing. But when he got to Mexico City, it's to me, that is, in Puerto Rico, he was very successful. But when he got there, his career went to another level because he really came into his own and became a box office. Not that he wasn't a box office attraction in Puerto Rico, but he was, a big, big star for Dorian.
Here's something I never thought I'd see. You and Kurt Angle as a tag team for a hair versus hair match. How the hell does this come together?
Only in Mexico City. It is a lot of fun. Good match. Go out of your way, as Conrad would say. Folks, go out of your way to check this out. We're going to have to get Dorian to dig that up from the archives. So who were our partners? I'm trying to think.
You're going to defeat the AAA Trios champions at Triple Mania 21, where you team with Matt Morgan and Monster Pain to take on the Los Psycho Clowns. But somewhere in there, you still made time for a hair match with Kurt Angle as a tag partner. A minute ago, we didn't think he was maybe, we could make the money work. And now here he is in a hair match.
He must have lost it going in, but no. I'm just trying to think what the story was on that. I'll have to dig up my research on that. I don't know.
It was Triple Mania 20, I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. I mean, the way I think I have it here is we've got sort of Team Dorian versus Team Mr. Roldan, his dad. It's Electroshock in LA Park, taking on you and Kurt, and you guys have Dorian and Karen in your corner.
That's it. Dorian's hair versus Roldan, the father's hair. It's father versus son, hair versus hair.
Yes.
Yeah. So you told me you kept.
But still, a hair match is such a big deal in Mexico, and now imagine
father son,
just like we did once upon a time with Trump and Vince.
That's it.
Now it's father son, so it's Vince versus Shane, hair versus hair, and you're defending the son here. That's kind of a cool story
with Kurt. So you kind of have to see the vision of two Americans.
Not only that, you and Kurt.
Yep.
Karen in your corner.
Yep.
And Dorian.
Yep.
This is crazy.
It's box office. But again, I'm going to go to Conan. You have to understand the episodic nature of the weekly build, and father son are not fighting over their allowance money. They are fighting over control of this company. And this is the 20th or the 21st Triple Mania. So at Triple Mania, for the control of the company, essentially, but I mean, at this point, it was hair versus hair, and is as authentic as you can get in Lucha Libre style. Wasn't masked, it was hair versus hair, father son. And so, the B-roll shots and the still shots of the mother in the crowd witnessing her husband and her son going at it. It's just storytelling, emotional storytelling. Who can not? Now, Conan, a lot of story behind the story, and you're chuckling and grinning that, oh, okay, so you and Kurt are partners and everything go with that. But the American is coming down from TNA, you know, fighting for the kid Dorian. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Really great stuff. We should revisit that whole thing one day.
Oh, I'm telling you, we should.
Maybe have Dorian.
Yes.
We got to have Dorian on and
can I moderate? Because I want to ask him questions.
How great would that be?
Now, oh, I'm telling you.
Let's work on that.
Get Conan.
Yeah, both of them.
So back up. Conan, like me and a lot of others, we always have our ups and downs. There has been a time that I'll just say the doors weren't always wide open for Conan and AAA, but mending fences and weaving in and out. But for all of this to, as the world turns, and he's masterminding this story of father-son, Jeff and Kurt, and that's not even getting on the political side of who's in the match and who's defending, because you can imagine the slot that the baby faces, the Technicos wanted to be to face me and Kurt, because Dorian's the one losing the hair. It's big. No, the father, wait, on this one, the father lost.
It's amazing to think about all the history that gets crammed in there and how Conan is the guy that sort of pulls it all together. And what's fascinating to me most of all, and I know, boy, this just feels like a Conan appreciation show, but to be clear, he's the top star in Mexico of the modern era. Like, and a lot of times people just really quickly say, oh, he was the Hulk Hogan of Mexico. But it was bigger than that, because he didn't, yes, he did movies and television, but it wasn't like goofy shit like Hogan did. It was good stuff. And he put out a rap album, and it wasn't like goofy shit. It was good stuff. And the first Triple Mania is something like 59,000 folks, and it's built on his back. And he comes out to fucking Rocky music, and he looks different than everyone else. He's a bodybuilder. And by the way, boy, I know that how this sounds because I'm an Alabama fucker saying it, but he's not even Mexican. This is a Cuban guy coming in and becoming the biggest star in Mexico. Like, it shouldn't have happened, but it did. And then he becomes almost like a, you know, he jumped ship just like Hogan did, right? From one company to another. Biggest star in CMLL, then becomes biggest star in AAA, and really AAA's launched on his back, and it becomes the biggest thing going. And then guess what? He sees the next frontier is WCW, and he becomes almost like the talent whisperer, to use a mafioso Godfather-like term. He's the consigliere to all of the talent, then, now, and forever. And then somehow became a political animal and understood the booking and how to navigate these waters. But as you said, at times he'd get himself in a little bit of trouble. Maybe he would have a too strong of an opinion, or maybe he didn't always play politics the right way, or whatever. But now he's somehow found a way to mature and grow and be better. And you hear his philosophy now, and this is a guy who, when he talks to talent, man, he's been there, done that. And I mean, in front of the camera, behind the camera, the whole thing. But a guy who, despite the rocky stops and starts and crazy infighting and all that, he's still there now, which, to take it back to the start of our show, is why I have hope for CM Punk. Not comparing the two. There's no comparison between the two. Outside of, I'm sure there were a lot of times where offices at WCW or TNA or CMLL or AAA sounded just like your dad and Austin Idol. We'll never use Conan again. And now here he is creating magic at WrestleMania 20 or Triple Mania 20, like we're talking about in this hair versus hair match. And he'll do it again in 3 weeks in Mexico City for Triple Mania 30. The Conan story, dude, is fascinating. And the more I learn about Conan and the more I get to sort of pick his brain and learn from him, because I had the good fortune of being able to hang out with him a few hours, I don't know, a month ago in Mexico. Dude, that dude, he's a fucking wrestling guru for real.
I I got a story coming up in this episode that you're going to crack up at. So keep rolling.
Triple Mania 21. We mentioned a minute ago. You beat the Trios champions. You and Matt Morgan and Monster Pain over Los Psychos Clown. Make a comparison to the Psycho Clowns. Is there anybody like that in the U.S.?
You know what is, I guess, and it's come and gone, but in America, I'm going to give you a little game here. Conrad, if I tell you, what's the first thing you think of when I say wrestling clown? Go.
Doink.
Okay. The Psycho Clowns, that music, God almighty, and I was going to cue that up on my phone. Their theme music that they come out to puts a vibe in the arena because they've got a crazy clown mask. And folks, if you haven't seen it, it'll be on at My World Pod or at Real Jeff Jarrett. We'll show images of Psycho Clown. But originally there was a big clown, Psycho Clown. Anyway, there were a group of clowns. In San Luis Potosi, that's the first time I saw them. It's such a unique act that just freaking works. But they're crazy clowns. So the original Matt Bourne, Doink the Clown, that was kind of a maniacal deal. I thought that was the best version of Doink. But the Psycho Clowns, they're Lucha Libre guys that you're not going to see them do 15 Hurricane Rondas and all that, although they can do the Lucha style. It's not about the moveset. It's all about the charisma and connecting with the kids and connecting with the audience and a lot of fun. And, you're definitely a Jim Crockett guy. Handsome Jimmy in his prime.
Yeah.
Just when he came through the curtain, it's certainly in Memphis, the boy from New York City was super over.
Yep.
I mean, Handsome would tell my dad, or my dad would tell my Handsome, hey man, boy from New York City, we'll play that thing 3 or 4 times. If the people are with it, keep going. How long are you going to go in your match? My dad, Handsome, like, the shorter, the better. It's all about the emotional connection. And so Psycho Clowns,
yeah,
it is huge connection.
Psycho Clown still one of the more prolific and over talents. He's going to be a big part of Triple Mania in a couple.
I think he's the biggest box office attraction. I know Vikingo and Phoenix, and that gets in our debate. Who's the best in-ring wrestler and all that? And we kind of know where that argument can go. But as far as a box office attraction, I'll say this: Psycho will sell the most merch.
No doubt.
30. Yeah.
I would bet on that.
Get even more from the hottest new podcast going, My World, with Jeff Jarrett over at adfreeshows.com. Let me get granular here for a minute, folks. Not only can you get the entire My World episode library with 0 ads, new episodes come your way each week early, ad-free, and on video starting at just $9 a month. We've also got tons of exclusive My World bonus content waiting for you, plus unique interactive experiences with your old pal, Double J. You get to jump on and ask Jeff questions, and if you joined us in Chicago this year for Top Guy Weekend, you got to hang out the entire weekend. 100% the best value in all of wrestling. Strut on over to adfreeshows.com right now to sign up.
Listen, it's not in our notes, but I do want to bring it up because I have heard rumors and innuendos, whispers, if you will. I don't know. So I'm just going to ask. We can edit it out if you don't want to talk about it. But I heard once upon a time you had an issue with Psycho Clown. What happened?
Elaborate.
I don't know. I was told that there was some sort of real life heat once upon a time. I don't know if that's real or not. No one in AAA told me that. It was a Lucha fan who was trying to smarten me up and said, oh, what's ironic is your son Cody was at one of our events in Nashville wearing a Psycho Clown shirt. And that's the reason that this fan pointed out and said, that kid, that's Jeff's kid, right? Yeah. His dad got in a fight with that. What? I didn't know that.
Wow, Conrad, you did a little scoop.
So what happened? And we'll edit it out if you don't want to talk about it.
No, God, I love it. And he would love it that we're talking about it.
So it really happened. There was a real situation.
Boy. Yes. Oh boy. And we're going to get into a little bit later in this episode as well. But one night the story was whatever the scenario was, but I ended up taking a guitar shot and I was supposed to be down. Now, have you seen Psycho Clown when he goes into his comeback, his trademark comeback?
I saw him wrestle Joey Janela in Nashville.
I don't know if did he take off his weight belt?
Yes.
Okay, so the My War listeners that aren't familiar with Psycho Clown, when he starts into his comeback, at the very end of it, it's like Lawler pulling down the strap or whatever it may be. He pulls off his own weight belt, like a Cody Rhodes weight belt, and he starts strapping everybody in the ring. A lot of times he'll strap the referee or one of his partners. He's just crazy. He went psycho with the belt, and it tells the story. Well, as the match had gone and the match was over and there was a lot of afterbirth and still craziness going on, and I had taken a guitar shot and I was down in the ring selling, quote unquote, knocked out.
Yeah.
And he came over and whacked me again. And I've got a belief, if you're going to whack me, I want to sell it. So don't whack me when I'm knocked out. And he did it. And I rolled out of the ring and kind of let that one go. And then he keeps going crazy and did it again. I want to say it's like the third time or something like that. By this time, Conrad, I'm like,
Country Boy's pissed now.
If this son of a bitch, and kind of full disclosure, I don't know if you know this, Conrad, but there was a time, let's just say I might have tipped a canoe or two.
Sure. Once upon a time, you maybe had a little fun.
So when the engine water was rolling and high test, as some folks will say, I had some high test water in me that night, and that second, third, fourth time happened. That's all she wrote. I came up and the live round started going.
You were firing off on him for real?
Oh yeah. We went at it.
In the ring in front of everybody.
In the aisle. In the aisle. And no, people started working, but like breaking it up. And then they knew real quick that I connected with a couple of live shots and he was firing live rounds back, and it kept going and it got in the back, and I can cuss somebody out in Spanish and he can cuss somebody out in English. And it was pretty ugly. And then that was kind of,
what year do you think that was, if you had to guess?
Look, we need to ask Charlie. I'll find out. I don't know, but obviously it was before 2017.
Yeah.
Before, it's it's a ways back. 13, 14. So it's a ways back.
I know we're getting sidetracked, but I appreciate that you're always just super honest. So I'm going to ask it because it sounded like you insinuated it. Were you drinking before the match?
Yes.
Wow. So you were knee deep in it.
This is where sin takes you farther than you'll ever expect to go. As a cardinal rule I had, never, ever, ever. And do you know how I rationalize that? Because Mexico's different culture, and I'm talking about as far as the wrestling. Oh, it's okay. I'm flying to Mexico, land. Karen's favorite meal is this club sandwich and chicken soup, and we would eat before we'd go to the show. And a lot of times we would go into the arena after the people got in. People think, no, yeah, because of the heat, they didn't want me and her arriving while the people were going to the building. So
I got you.
So we would be literally like, we better eat now, because we're not getting back here till late. It's 5:30 or 6 or 6:30 or 7. A lot of times we wouldn't get picked up to go to the show till 6 or 7.
Wow.
Show start. Yeah. So, I'll just have one or two. Well, this day probably had 2 or 9, and arrived hitting on all cylinders, but fine, went out and worked the match. But once that third or fourth weight belt stung me around the ribs, when I'm dead selling, in my mind, I rationalized, God almighty, how the hell am I going to sell this? I'm dead. I'm going to stay here, because the finish had called for me to be knocked out by my guitar.
Sure. So you can't move around or sell it.
Did. Yeah.
So you felt like he was taking a liberty.
He was taking a liberty.
And
it'd be a green mistake, but he was taking a liberty.
Okay. And so is that the way ultimately he explained it, or it was explained away that he was green and it was a mistake and he didn't know.
I don't think it was green. Just, oh, no, that's my gimmick. That's my gimmick. So we agreed to disagree, essentially.
How did cooler heads prevail? How did it eventually get calmed down? How does it not spill over to the back?
Well, it spilled over into the back for sure. And then, me and Karen's like, God almighty, would you stop? She's pissed off at me. You can imagine,
I don't want any part of pissed off Karen.
Well, she's mad at me, and then the silent treatment, and okay.
You just get along at that point. Right? I mean, listen, it's just mine and your wives, boy, when they get pissed off, it's like that dog in Christmas Vacation snots. It's easier if you just let him finish.
Boom. So I shower. Let's go back to the hotel. We got an early flight. She,
politically, is there any backlash from that? Where they're like, oh, we can't bring Jeff back. Jeff, was.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure they were not happy with it. I mean, there was one trip where I wonder if this is the trip. Maybe because LA Park, Conrad, in my big room out there, or where, my.
Yeah, your man cave.
Okay. The bank, up on the thing that I got that broken guitar.
Yep.
I don't know if you were there. That is the broken guitar that I brought back from Mexico that LA Park hit me with that split me. I've got a nice
one in the bathroom.
No, that's Steiner.
Okay.
Steiner hit me back, but this is up on the ledge. It's a black one that is heavier than usual, but I got a nice scar on the top of my head. It's probably about a 2-inch one.
Wow.
And I got walloped, and no, doctor wants to look at it, and I'm telling the doctor, get away from me. I showered. We get to the airport the next day, and it's bleeding out of my head. Karen's pissed off at me. I don't know if this was the same trip or not, but she was furious that I didn't get it sewed up. And now she's in the airport waiting on a gate. We're about to go get on a flight, which is going to bleed even more. She goes to the pharmacy, gets the Neosporin. She's Conrad. It wasn't a red letter day in the Jeff and Karen situation. She was so mad at me. But thank God all that stuff is in my rearview mirror, Conrad.
How are you and Psycho Clown today?
So now great. We've worked a bunch. I think my last match was against him down there. I've worked with him it was over. Literally the next time, went up to him, Migo, blah, 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 blah. It's over.
I always love that in wrestling, more often than not, it does become, let's let bygones be bygones.
Oh, it's over. No, there was no upside to holding on to any of it.
Is it ever played out in a story? Like, do wrestling fans who follow?
I'm actually surprised, and kudos to you or your friend or whoever that you recalled it. We'll find a YouTube clip of it.
Well, the only reason it even came up is because, again, Cody was wearing a Psycho Clown shirt.
But here's my point.
So they thought it was ironic. And I was like, I didn't have I had seen Psycho Clown, but I had no context for why would Jeff be in a spat with that guy?
Well, and I don't believe, shout out Derek, I don't believe it was reported in Meltzer's Noodle Cider.
I've never seen it written or talked about at all.
So Conan, I would say Conan, the promotion, I don't say sweep it under the rug. It was a non-issue. Two guys got in a fight in the aisle. If you didn't really know and see a little goose egg here and a goose egg there and a scuff on a guy's chin or this or that, you didn't even know. Just like, hey, those guys are throwing live rounds with a bunch of people around them.
Well, it just feels like you could go the other way too. Like you could say, oh, we got to make a story out of this.
Yeah. It didn't. We didn't go that direction.
Got it. Well, now I'm curious, since we just went down that rabbit hole, how many times do you think you've been in a spot where you threw live rounds in a quote unquote wrestling realm like this? A dust up a Psycho Clown. Can you count it on one hand?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Do you remember is there one that sticks out in your craw? It's like, buddy, that was the worst one. When me and old so-and-so, he did this and I did that.
No, a lot of times through the years, you get frustrated at guys that are taking liberties is one thing, but no selling, whether it's a heel or a baby face, and you're like, dude, this isn't anything we talked about in the back. We kind of laid this out, and if I'm the heel, I'm supposed to scoot, and the baby face is supposed to stay in the ring and not come out on the ring. Give me some space. But if you come out in the ring, then all of a sudden we got to fight again. There's nuances on. I let the heel scoot to the floor, but leave some space and let the announcers have time to tell that story. But if the babyface keeps chasing the heel on the floor and around the ring and then all of a sudden it's like the heel's on his bicycle, and you can't really, you're telling a different story other than, wow, this combustion just happened. Man, I can't wait till so-and-so date at the pay-per-view. Little nuances like that. So there's been countless of those that tell the right story. And so you get frustrated. Live rounds like that doesn't happen very often.
If you think of any, we should talk about some more.
Okay.
Because people love that sort of story. And by the way, that Psycho Clown story is going to go everywhere now. So be sure to see Psycho Clown in a few weeks at Triple Mania 30. Your next appearance in AAA was going to be after GFW is formed, and you appear at their World Cup to scout talent and provide commentary. Was your exit from TNA an issue with AAA or an opportunity?
Probably neither, but probably if you had to pick one or the other, obviously an opportunity. There was no connection between AAA and, for the lack of a better word, Dixie and her regime. There was nothing there. Zero. So
how does it come to be where you're going to be working with them for global with the Global Force opportunity?
Just me and Dorian's relationship. And I reached out to him, and they had this Victoria's beer had a beer sponsor, and they were doing a World Cup, and they were like, yeah, we'd like to get you involved. And there was, if I remember correctly, Matt Hardy was there. There were Japanese talent. It was a big event. Lots of sponsorship dollars moved into that. It was one of the stories, and that'll probably be a little viral thing there. That was it. Conan and Vampiro on commentary when Vampiro had some flatulence.
I don't remember that.
Well,
I remember him yelling, "Play my fucking music."
Okay, remember that?
Yeah.
I think this night had a bunch of snafus. Conrad, I got you chuckling.
Yeah, I guess Vampiro farted so loud you could hear it through the headset in 2018. Let's take a listen here.
Wait, that was 18?
I think so. I just did a quick little Google and found this. Let's take a listen. Maybe this is it. I'm not sure, but we'll have some fun together.
What happened?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Here we go. Something's going to happen.
One more time.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's hard for me to hear on this end, but the laugh on your face, Stryker's with him, right?
Yes.
I got you off guard, didn't it? We've taken all kinds of left turns, dust ups, little inebriation, little flatulence.
Oh my God. The play my music thing happened at WrestleMania 26. I feel sorry, but it's my WrestleMania now. It's closer.
Okay.
I'm pumped.
Right on.
Listen, here's the deal. This feels like we're picking on Vampiro. I am not. I worked with Vampiro one time, and it was at StarCast 2 in Las Vegas. He was fantastic. Could not have been easier to deal with. Looking forward to spending some more time with him. I'm sure he's going to be at Triple Mania, and I'll get to see him for the first time in a while. And it's amazing because I think
go ahead.
I think most people listening to this think of Vampiro as a WCW guy. But buddy, he in the early 90s was a phenomenon. He was the Shawn Michaels heartthrob of the era, and he's still super beloved. But I guess there was a production snafu at WrestleMania or Triple Mania 26 here. He's on commentary. Killer Cross is in the ring. Jeff Jarrett's in the ring.
Music right now. Come on, man. Vampiro calling for his music because it's the music that will get these fans behind Vampiro for them to understand what's going on here. And all the production aside there, where's the fucking music at this point?
Striker is phenomenal.
You're being called out. Please, for the love of fucking God, put the music on.
Matt Striker, boy.
Hey,
Talented human being, a patient man, staying on track. But listen, I get Vampiro's frustration. Clearly a production snafu. It happened.
in the arena, and he wanted the people to cue because they pop off the music. It's all pop music, but literally pop music. So Back in Black's his theme, and he wanted that to hit. And he'll step up in the ring because he's in ring. He was not coming from the back. So people at home listening to this, Vampiro was not at the go or gorilla position to walk down
ringside and commentary.
Ringside on English color commentary, not Spanish. So it is like a secondary language, second audio feed, and he's hoping that his music plays. He finally got a little frustrated, didn't he? And Matt Striker, what was his words? Well, all the production snap.
Well, what I liked is the way he goes, and of course, the music he's calling for is music that will let the fans know what Vampiro's intentions might be. I mean, it was so like, how do I explain what's happening here? Because it's not like he's hitting, a dump button to talk to the truck. It's just over the air on the feed.
Yes.
Tremendous.
And me and Cross are in the ring, right? Who else?
You and Cross and Conan and some others. And everybody's just sort of standing around like, where is Vampiro?
No, we weren't. We were looking at Vampiro.
Yeah, come on. What are you doing? This is your cue. Where are you?
Yeah, you're going to have to go without music tonight, pal. They have missed the cue. By God, he was not standing up until his music played.
He stood up and then sat back down. Like, I'm not going anywhere until the music hit.
It was a train wreck. A complete train wreck. Oh, boy.
Now, listen, we're not making fun of Vampiro or Triple Mania. It was, to your point, a secondary language. So imagine if all of a sudden Hugo Savinovich starts yelling back in the day in a WWE pay-per-view, play my fucking music. Nobody's hearing that. They're not even monitoring that feed. It's just sort of out there. They're monitoring the Spanish feed. So anyway, let's talk about, since we're having some fun, maybe this will not be painful, but there's a pretty controversial moment we got to talk about. The year prior to Triple Mania 26 is Triple Mania 25, and there's a Battle Royal Trios match, and supposedly there's an incident. It means the whole TNA GFW merger might not happen because there were reports that unfortunately you were under the influence at the show and in the ring. What can you clear up about that? Because I know this was quite a scene down there, and
there is
the internet
nothing,
talking.
This is nothing to clear up. That is publicly the worst day. I don't want to be dramatic here, but this was almost the end of the end. This is Labor Day weekend. I went into treatment October 25th. So 7 weeks after this, but this was super, super dark days for me personally that very few were aware. Probably Karen was the only one who really, really, really knew. But we had flown to, and look, this is a rationalization, so I'm well aware of this. But we flew in, we left a day and a half before the show. No, so the show would have been, let's just say, it's a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday, but we had left on Thursday night, last flight, to be down for rehearsals, PR on Friday and rehearsals all day Saturday. Essentially, they asked us to come in quite early. to go over a bunch of stuff, which was, as you know, Conrad, again, not an excuse, but wife, blended family, 5 kids. When we both go on the road, and she wasn't going, but it's a process. And okay, what you going down there? What are you doing? Okay, so here I go. We got to go in that early. Get down there, Conrad. And I sat around and sat around and sat around and did nothing and did nothing. Just kind of an excuse. Idle minds, the devil's workshop. But come pay-per-view Sunday or Big Show Sunday, got to the building and they kind of laid out, oh, you're just doing the battle royal and you're going to be in there, whatever, 3 minutes, 5, just, it was nothing. So in my active addiction brain, it gave me an enormous green light. I got this, no big deal. And what a disaster, dude. I mean, just embarrassed myself, embarrassed my family. Again, only by the grace of God, those days are behind me. But no, I went on camera and was in no condition to go.
Do you think without this moment, you would have turned your life around and pulled the nose up and all that jazz? Was this a catalyst for change?
I think there's a bunch of these moments in retrospect. Now, look, I'm sitting here with 5 years of clarity, so I can kind of look at different things that have happened. But without question, and as far as making amends, this is something that Ed Nornholm had to deal with this. Who wasn't even, he had nothing to do with this, but he had to deal with this situation once I got back to Nashville. That, I'd gone and represented the company in a very unprofessional manner in so many ways. And so not only did I disgrace my wife and kids and family, but also the company that I was working with. And so, yeah, it's certainly a catalyst, one of several, but this was probably, the final straw that broke the camel's back was I guess you could say the final public situation. This is number 2. It was a bad deal, and in the back, no fit. I was mad at the world, most importantly myself. But it was ugly backstage, and there was a documentary there. And look, I could come up with a couple of different incidences, but I'll never forget Bobby Lashley was in the dressing room, the situation that happened with Sexy Star and Rosemary, and that was total bullshit. And her either husband or boyfriend, it was just an ugly scene backstage, but they took advantage of Rosemary. That girl did. I mean, just the whole, I'll say this, leadership in that dressing room Conan was not there. And Conan runs a different dressing room than Vampiro does. It's that simple. That was Vampiro's dressing room.
You're not fading hate to Vampiro, though. This is on you.
1,000% on me.
Yeah. I don't know what we can or can't talk about on the TNA side, so let's talk about the AAA side. Hurt feelings as a result of that? Do you have to, go make amends or what have you on the other side of this?
So flew home, as far as that, dealt with the anthem side of it. I'll say all that, and then the family side of it. But probably for sure less than 30 days. I was going to say in less than 2 weeks, 3 weeks. While I was in treatment, I got Dorian on the phone and just told him, dude, I owe you the biggest apology, and everybody in your organization and everybody that was there that night. I mean, and I meant every word of it, and got that. And I told him then, I will have an opportunity at some point. I hope sooner rather than later. I had no idea it was going to be how soon it was going to be. But I told him, Dorian, I owe you a huge apology. No, Jeff, he was very diplomatic about it, kind of, I don't say don't worry about it, but thank you. And let's move on. And I just said, hey, I want to be real clear, man. What I did was completely unprofessional. I've worked with your family since 03, respect everything, and I'm sorry. I was 100% in the wrong. And that was the phone call. So yeah, there was a big amends, but I won't jump too far ahead of the story, but that was definitely made. Conrad, I want to say it was like week 2. I'd had a session and some conversations, and I'd wanted to have some conversations with both parents, obviously Karen, the kids, business, just running the gamut. But from a business perspective, Dorian was at the very top of the list.
What a great success story it is. You come back just a year later and you unmask to reveal yourself as the new leader of MAD, M-A-D, and you're in the main event for the AAA mega title with Ray Wagner and Rey Mysterio Jr.
As you give this, what's the date on this?
Let me look up the exact date, but it's 2018.
Yep. But this is, I want to.
You're going somewhere. You have a story of some sort.
Yeah, just the time frame.
I don't know the information. So
because I think it's Verano Discount. I think it's Summer of Scandal, that show.
How's June 16th sound?
Yeah, close enough.
June 3rd.
Okay, June 3rd of 2018.
Yes.
The situation we just talked about was August, September, Triple Mania. Went into treatment in October, get out in December, January, February. So we had some conversations. Hey, are you interested in coming down? And I just didn't know. I was putting my life back together. So this is the first week of June. Conan calls me and tells me, hey, can you be available for Verano Discount? It's Summer of Scandal. It's one of their 5 big shows. They got Triple Mania, Ray to Rays. We won't go into that right now, but it's one of their 5 big ones. Can you be at this show? Like, yeah. Okay. And then he called me about 3 or 4 days beforehand, because we had talked roughly that we're going to insert you into an angle. They got this group faction called MAD with Killer Cross and Hoovy, and he's in it. And, just weaving the storyline. We're going to start something in May. But then June. He called me 3 days maybe before this, Conrad, and said, hey, you are bringing your wrestling stuff, aren't you? And I go, well, I wasn't, but yeah, I probably was, but I'm not wrestling. I know that. I've seen how it's advertised. He goes, make sure you bring your wrestling gear. Okay. So lay out the match again.
So here we go.
Old arch rivals.
You unmasked to reveal yourself as the new leader of this MAD group, and you're put in the main event, the AAA mega title with Ray Wagner and Rey Mysterio Jr. You win the match. And less than a year after the ugliness the year prior, not only are you back, now you're only in a big storyline. You're the champ. What a story.
You tell me, dude.
What a story.
6 weeks before this, I was put in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, and Conan, when we got to the building, and again, the Meltzer recap was I was unmasked. So they had done a weekly episodic vignettes, Conrad, of this mask leader that was the Wizard of Oz. He was directing, and they did storylines and build up and all this kind of stuff. And they basically say at Summer Scandal, the leader of MAD is going to be there. The leader of MAD's going to be there. Leader of MAD's going to be there. So when it comes time, I just like, hey, Conan, he goes, yeah, walk all screwed up, walk to the ring. Don't let them know it's you. Cause you're going to, I like had this hood, like I don't want to say anything political here, but it was not a wrestling mask. It was a true hood that was like a knapsack covering me. And I kind of limped to the ring and stood up in the ring, and they did that. And when I unveiled,
it's a white mask with like sewn black mouth frowning and two like blacked out X's over your eyes.
When you say mask, it's like a bed sheet. I hate to say a pillowcase. It's not really a fancy mask or a hood.
Yeah.
So when I unmasked, the people were like, son of a, he was just in the Hall of Fame last month. Like, where in that? I mean, not only was the last time they saw me down there, I was in no condition, and then is the Hall of Fame. And now I'm the leader of this faction that has been terrorizing the entire promotion. And Rey Mysterio, they had a date on Rey. Now we're talking about Rey freaking Mysterio and Ray Wagner, huge star. So it's a three-way. And the end of the night, they do this again, Conan creative finish. You talk about some heat, Connie.
The only giveaway I would have known is you're still wearing the damn blazer. You got to stop wearing these blazers.
They're off. I've put them in storage, pal.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a great story and a hell of a Jeff Jarrett story. I mean, it is the most Jeff Jarrett story of all time. Just when you think you can count him out. Nope. He's coming back, a Hall of Famer, and he's going to win the big belt. And it's going to take him less than a year. See y'all then. You lose the title to current AEW star Phoenix in a four-way that also involved Brian Cage and Rich Swann. And then you lose your hair against Ray Wagner at Heroes Immortales.
Another one of their big fives. Yep.
So one of their big shows, another big hair payday coming your way. Madison Square Garden, AAA, here we go. Have hair, let's let it go.
So in the lead up, and Conan kind of laid out after the fact that I won the title and we're doing photos, and I remember looking over at Conan because that picture still exists. Me, Killer Cross, Hoovy, and Conan. When those pictures would be taken off, I vividly remember looking over at Conan going, dude, you are way too much. He said, just wait till you see where we're going. I was like, whoa. And Phoenix, again, this is 2018 he's phenomenal, and he's coming up through the ranks. And Rich Swann, dude, he is unbelievably talented. And Brian Cage, I think he's just tailor-made for Lucha Libre because he can go and he's super athletic, but the way he looks is great. Anyway, the four-way.
And the way he moves. I mean, he can
That's
do
what I'm
that
saying. He's
stuff,
super
too.
athletic. But so Phoenix is the new champion off and running. I'm the one who pitched this. I said, hey, Conan, got a little bucket list. What about a hair match? And he's like, talk to Dorian. That's where dollars get involved. And so me and Dorian had a conversation, and Ray Wagner is a guy that I got a ton of respect for. He's a legend. And I remember telling Karen, yep, me and Dorian came to terms. I'm doing a hair match, and I'm losing, honey. She just looked at me and says, you're doing what? So, Immortal Heroes de Immortalis. But what a year 2018 was.
Your final match in AAA would see you team with Killer Cross and La Mascara in a losing effort to Los Fresas Salva. I don't know how to say that one. I screwed that one up. And Psycho Clown in a steel cage match. So Psycho Clown got you in the steel cage. I'm sure he whooped your ass one last time.
Yes, he did, with that belt. It's on YouTube.
And I bet you sold it this time.
Damn right I did.
And then after, of course, we know you got hired by WWE. And then what do you know? You get a chance to take a little breather. And somehow you pop back up at WrestleCon. Earlier this year, WrestleCon has a AAA show. And I'll be damned if Jeff Jarrett's not there. How about that?
You want this whole episode to come full circle?
I'm ready.
You were at WrestleCon, right?
Yeah.
And me and Karen were there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who was with me and Karen?
I would assume Cody.
Yep, Code Dog. So who do you think Cody wanted to go see wrestle?
Psycho Clown.
Bingo. So it is going up and going to the ad-free booth and the My World booth and all this. So AAA has a show, and, as we walk by there, I'm going to knock on the door and I go in, say hello to a bunch of different folks, and Conan's there, and we chatted up, and he looks up at me and he goes, I got an idea. I said, oh, do you? And we chuckled. He said, be back here at 7. Okay. And it's on. And we have just seen just the tip of the iceberg of that.
Yeah. Triple Mania 30 is a multi-show celebration. You and Karen are even going to come out, and there's a brawl with Latin Lover and Vampiro. Who knows what's next, but we know this. Triple Mania from Mexico City, right around the corner. It's going to be on Fight. I'm going to be there. I don't know if Jeff's going to be there. I don't know that I should even ask, but you can be there virtually on Fight.
I'm booked elsewhere, my friend.
A bunch of questions here came in about AAA. Josh Rosenbaum, Coach Rosie, friend of the show, says, was there a time in Mexico you did not feel safe inside or outside of the ring because of your in-ring persona?
Inside the ring, I always worried about that stray plastic bottle with too many rocks in it. Yeah, I mean, that kind of comes with the territory. Concerned with that, bad every time you go to the ring. Outside the ring, there were several times when you kind of arrive at the building, and even when you arrive late, you just kind of look around and go, this really isn't real safe. It just takes one idiot. But they did a lot of precautions. The police there always really understood. Many times I've left the building in diversion, that they looks like we're getting in the car backstage and we're there and they have the stuff and then shut the car up, but we're really not in it. It pulls out. And a lot of people go that way and we go another way. So, yeah, it's a different culture. So comes with the territory.
Here's one. This is about cultures. Kenneth wants to know, hey, Jeff, love the podcast. We know the American wrestling audience is rowdy and very vocal. The Japanese wrestling audience is the opposite in that they're quiet and more respectful with soft clapping. How would you say the Mexican wrestling audience differs?
You know what? And I've had this conversation a lot, and it's, that I'll say this: Italians are different than Germans. Germans are different than Swedes. Brits are different than Canadians. Canadians are different than Americans. In Mexico, as a culture, not just wrestling, as a culture, they're very, very passionate about their country, a lot of patriotism, about their food, about their emotions. They wear the emotions on the sleeve. They love a great novella. Just their culture has a lot of passion in it. And so with that passion, they bring it to their favorite pastime in America: football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Now there's 10 other sports out there, and soccer's huge. I mean, here in Nashville, just all that kind of stuff. In Mexico, from a cultural perspective, you have soccer, and yes, you do have a little baseball and little American football, different sports, but Lucha Libre is culturally, generation after generation after generation, is right up there at the very top. So from a cultural perspective, it's bigger than it is in Japan or the United States. That's something that, Conrad, that I think we'll talk about for weeks and months to come. From a cultural perspective, the U.S. audience, in a lot of ways, they don't know what they're missing. And I'm happy that we get to do these episodes, because the Lucha Libre fan base, they love a great story. It's not all about flips and flops and all that. There's a lot of storytelling that goes into, and the Lucha audience loves it. They absolutely understand. They understand when Psycho takes off his belt, he's going to go crazy for a second. Yes, it's showbiz, but man, it's great showbiz.
Rory wants to know, do American wrestlers make great heels in Mexico like the Russians did during the Cold War era of wrestling in the United States?
It all depends to the individual. I loved it. I embraced it. You have other American folks that want to go down there and still believe it's all about the move set, and they are just completely missing the target in Mexico.
Cowboy Arrogance says, and boy, I feel like we're revisiting something here, but this is something that people said. When Sexy Star broke Rosemary's arm in the shoot armbar, was the post-match footage of you that was shown on Impact a shoot or work? You were filmed in a hallway ready to fight and maybe got in Conan's face. I don't think he got in Conan's face, but I think this is the show we were talking about a little earlier where things got ugly.
That I showed my ass.
But there has been a narrative out there that part of your what was presented there was a work. And other people say, no, they're just saying that to cover the tracks, set the record straight once and for all, I guess.
It goes without saying, Conrad, that I am not an expert on shoot fighting or submissions or any of that kind of stuff. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but so I'm just going to say diplomatically, okay? I'm watching the screen and watching the Rosemary Sexy Star match, and Bobby Lashley is in the room with me. And I looked at that and I went, that's bullshit. And Bobby said a few words and I said, Bobby, I ain't no expert, but they took liberty. And I won't say what he said, but he absolutely said, she absolutely did that. That kind of set me over. You know, I felt that I was, and I handled it wrong, but my mindset was, she's under my watch, Rosemary. If I don't say something,
who will?
That it's okay. Oh yeah, give him the green light. Just hurt these gringos when he come down here. It's total bullshit. To this day, you can go back and watch. She took liberties with Rosemary. Period.
Brad Stanton has a tongue-in-cheek question. Did you get more heat in Mexico or your match with Ric Flair? Mexico.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, clearly Mexico, right? They were throwing shit.
My hometown of Nashville, people turned on me like a snake.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe
it. You and your bogus ass bull crap with Megan out there playing the violin for a 70-year-old man. Jeez, I'm kidding, Conrad.
Tristan has a tongue-in-cheek question, but it is something that I'm sure some of our fans are wondering. Have you ever gone one-on-one with Montezuma or his revenge while in Mexico?
Don't jinx me. So far, so good. Bottled water, pal. Bottled water.
I've never, listen, I've heard about it, but I've never actually experienced it. But my most recent visit down there, I'm just thinking, that's all just nonsense. But as I come off the plane, as I'm headed to the customs area, there's a giant billboard advertising diarrhea medicine and in giant English letters, diarrhea. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is
no way.
I swear.
That's funny.
And I thought, man, if I knew somebody else on this plane, I would say, will you take my picture next to this and send it to my wife? Great follow-up question here from Tristan. Can you talk about the difference in working a match in Mexico versus the United States? All the different psychology approaches, and what are some of the things that you would do that would get a lot of heat from the crowd down there? So we know, you throw in tortillas is one of those things. Are there other little go-tos you have that really work down there? And can you talk about the psychology difference between American wrestling and Lucha Libre?
I guess from the casual fan, as far as the physical tagging when you're in tag matches, the physical tag, even a touch tag, doesn't always have to happen. But to me, the spontaneity, is that how you enunciate that word?
Yeah, it is.
In my hillbilly. That is something that it's like it, especially, I'd love to come up with an example, but any young guy, whether it's a Mexican or an American, I would tell them, these people will tell you, if you don't listen to the Lucha Libre audience, you're just doing yourself a disservice. You know, and you can have all the high spots and the flying and this and that, but if you don't kind of let the people get into it, and I'm saying they got their horns and they got their chants and they got this and that, but you got to be the conductor. Does that make sense, Conrad? You got to kind of conduct things. And sometimes in America, people, it's just a different vibe. So if you have kind of a conductor of the mindset that you're gonna do your stuff, but listen to the audience and do it when it's right. But I think that also comes just with time and experience. But also you got to bring a fight. Their tempo of their match is they love heat, and then they love comebacks, and they love extended heats, and they love extended comebacks. Again, you got to learn the style. It's different than American. It just is.
John wants to know, how difficult was it to adapt to working on the left in Mexico versus the right in the US? I don't think that's the way that goes, but
yeah, you work the left arm
in America,
right? But that's almost passe. That's almost a generation or two removed.
Old school, yeah. Well, Jeff, I'm excited, man. This
make it through today, pal.
I love. I'm not feeling well. Sorry about that.
Not feeling well. He was drag assing a little bit. I felt a little bad for the guy. He got him a little Chick-fil-A and had him a little drink. He was a little slow, but folks,
we had fun. That's a
Conrad,
good show.
You just pulled the nose up, did fine.
Bound for Glory 2007 is what we're going to be talking about next week. And I think we might actually be doing a little watch along action, doing something a little different here on the show, getting ready for Bound for Glory, Daddy.
I know.
I'm a big fan of all of these companies having their big shows this time of year. And 07, man, what a big show it was. Sting and Kurt Angle for the TNA World title. Samoa Joe working with Christian Cage. A Monsters Ball match. Jay Lethal, Christopher Daniels, the Steiner brothers, Team 3D. So much good stuff on this show. We're going to be talking about it next week. Went down in Duluth, Georgia at the Gwinnett Center. About 4,000 fans there. Pretty good house for TNA. Pretty good time for TNA. Yep. What might we be talking about next week?
Pac-Man. No. It'll be a fun episode because 07, those, I don't say those building blocks because it was day one building blocks, but there was definitely a noticeable momentum. You just named Kurt, Sting in the main event.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
We could go all the way down it and we'll have fun diving into it, but a noticeable momentum, taking the pay-per-views on the road, the marketing, that building. I love that Gwinnett Center. Just far enough out of Atlanta. Interesting time. I'll just say that. Interesting time, like a lot of times are, but it'll be a fun episode. Good show. That was a good show.
It was a good show. We're going to talk about it. We're going to watch some of it. We hope you'll watch along with us. We're going to be back talking about some old school TNA. Then we're going to talk about the main event Mafia. We got Ring King on deck in early November. But before we get there, can't believe this is real. But it's on our schedule, Jeff.
What's that?
A few days before Halloween.
Yep.
We're talking Dixie Carter.
Oh,
that'll be clicked and quoted and baited. And
well, that isn't one of those episodes that you guys have said, hey, Jeff, you got any ideas on a little research? Which I've gotten multiple requests and fulfilled on Ring of King. This is one of those episodes that, hey,
well, I don't think we can do the whole Dixie story in one show.
No way.
So
0 chance.
We're gonna start maybe part one of
call it part one. The early years.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what we're going to call it yet. You and I will record it and you'll say something amazing. And then that's what I'll call it. But it'll be the start of the Dixie Carter story.
What's today called?
How Psycho Clown whooped my ass and I learned to like it.
You love that story, don't you?
Well, I do love it. But here's the thing. If I'm honest with you, I knew we were going to have to talk about the 2017 show. And I think that a lot of people are really fascinated about that show. And I think it probably does deserve its own long form discussion at some point, and maybe with other people, if and when you want to. But I thought this was a nice appetizer. And I'd really like to go back and talk about in long form the hair versus hair piece of business.
good storytelling.
Your return and winning the world title, and there's so many little episodes that were inside of the show. I think it's one of our most fun episodes in a while.
We did a storyline where the entire arena was chanting brouhaha, which is witch in Spanish. That it was an episode. I say this, it was a show, but you get sometimes 3, but most of the time 2 television shows, sometimes 4. I don't know how many they get out of it. But Conan basically had Karen as a thread, and they ended up putting a witch's hat on her and threw over like a black skirt on her and all this. We didn't even touch any of that. There are some sub episodes in here. It's good storytelling and so much stories behind the stories. We didn't get into a funny Mickey James, Samoa Joe story when they both went down, and we all had 5 a.m. flights. And when you get back to the hotel at midnight, there's no need in going to bed. That stuff that they have down there in bottles with worms in it, it's just
Roll Tide. It's Roll Tide. That's what it is.
Let's move on, pal.
We'll be back next week talking a little TNA from 2007. Make plans to join us, and we're going to get you some info at the start of the show of how you can watch along with us. And that should be pretty fun. We haven't done a lot of watch alongs of TNA, but next week it goes down right here on My World.
Peace.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.